Hi, I'm Christine. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am here with my top 5 historical romance heroes and heroines. So first off, this is a collab with Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life, which thank you so much, Crystal, for reaching out to do this video together. This was such a fun idea. I love historical romances, and I know that Crystal loves them as well. And to gush about our top 5 historical romance heroes and then our top 5 historical romance heroines, like, yes, please. So I'm so excited to watch Crystal's video after this and see which ones were her favorites, see if we have any of the same or any different ones as well. I can't wait to watch. So definitely check out her video and her channel too if you're not already following her. Like, she is amazing. I love the way she talks about books and just discusses in-depth thoughts and figuring out the types of reading that she likes to do, figuring out what works for her with authors, with their writing. She really gets into the craft of writing, and I just love that about her channel. So I'm so excited to jump into this video. This one did take me a while just because of thinking of like favorite historical romance heroes and heroines. I feel like I've read so many amazing ones, and it was really hard to narrow it down to just 5 for each. So I feel like you're going to see a lot of the same authors that I talk about in this video, which, I mean, they're my favorites for a reason. Like, I love their books so much. So yeah, I'm excited to jump into it. And without further ado, we're going to jump into the top 5 heroines first because, I mean, ladies first, right? So first up, I have Lord of Scoundrels by Loretta Chase. This is the gorgeous cover. Mine is sadly missing a little corner here, but this is the original cover that I am obsessed with. And there are multiple versions of her book, so this is another one. This one has a step back, which I love. So I definitely had to have multiple editions of this book. This is one of my favorite historical romances. Actually, one of my favorite like reads in general of all time. So of course, we're gonna go with the badass Jessica Trent. So I feel like Jessica Trent is the heroine of all heroines. Like, I love her so much, and she is one I'm constantly thinking about. So if you haven't read Lord of Scoundrels yet, you definitely need to. This is the ultimate enemies to lovers. We have a damaged hero, grade A sexual tension and banter, and then a whole like fantastic compromised marriage of convenience situation. So the hero in this one is Sebastian, Dane, and Jessica. They first meet in Paris, and they definitely get off to a rough start at first. They're both like super drawn to one another, but equally can't stand one another. Like, these two are just so into one another from the start, but they definitely rub each other the wrong way as well. He's the type of hero who tries to pretend the feelings aren't there. And then with Jessica, she's just like kind of annoyed with his masculine pride high horse that he's on. So the tension in this book is just everything. I loved seeing them try to fight those feelings for one another, but also like being pulled to each other. The hero is dubbed Lord of Scoundrels in this book, and I loved how Jessica is just like gives 0 Fs and is not afraid to step up to him. She's strong and fierce and fights literally at times to fight for what she wants. I just loved seeing these two paired up together. Loved how he's like the one afraid of intimacy, and she's the one who's like, I'm not gonna take any of your crap. So this book just has the most amazing heroine, has the perfect balance of what I like to read in romances. And yeah, if you haven't read it yet, you definitely need to, because this book is just chef's kiss all around. Next up is Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin, which I have actually right behind me. You can probably see I have a couple editions there, so I'm not going to pull them out. I will just throw up the photo right here. But Bennett Sharp is just the ultimate badass captain pirate heroine. So this book is definitely a dark historical romance, so just know that going in. There are tons of content warning for this book, which you can check on Goodreads. Pam Godwin definitely writes darker historical romances, darker books in general, so definitely know that before going into her reads. But if you're down for the ride, then this one is action-packed, high seas adventure. Like, I love this book so much. In this book, we follow Bennett Sharp. She is actually trying to get away from her husband when the story starts, and kind of trying to get revenge against him as well because he wronged her in the past. So while trying to move on from him, she also ends up getting caught up in this captor-captive situation with another hero who is also a captain. But like I said, this book does have darker themes. It is definitely messy and angsty, with Bennett kind of pulled between these two men in her life. But it's just like a wild, angsty ride set on the high seas, like full of all the adventure, and this was just an entertaining read all around. And like, I definitely want to see more captain heroines, because Bennett Sharp, like, yes please. Next up is Destiny Surrender by Beverly Jenkins. This is the second book in her Destiny series, but you can definitely read these as standalones. They follow the same family though. So if we're noticing a theme here with my favorite heroines, they are all badass and unconventional, and Billy definitely fits that as well. I love how Billy in this one just stands up for herself. She takes no crap from other people. She calls it how it is. She literally defends her life and is just like a fierce and strong mom as well. And when the story begins with this one, Billy's actually working as a lady of the night, and one of her regulars is the hero. So she's kind of been his favorite for years. He like comes and visits her. They spend a lot of time together. He lavishes her with gifts, and like Billy is just living her best life. Then when Billy actually accidentally gets pregnant at the beginning of the story, her life kind of gets turned upside down. So when some other circumstances in Billy's life kind of make life very crazy and hectic for her, she ends up having to suddenly flee to save herself and then her son's life. She ends up tracking down Drew, which is the hero and the father of her son, and she goes to him and is like, hey, I need your help to like protect our son. Which of course he is like totally thrown off with this, because after Billy had disappeared, he had tried to look for her for a while, couldn't find her, and so he'd kind of like moved on with his life. So when Billy shows up at his family's ranch in California, he's definitely thrown for a loop when she's like, hey, I'm here, and also like, this is your son. Things get kind of rolling quickly from there, and I just really loved seeing Billy like just take charge of her life. She just jumps in, kind of fits in with the community, fits in with his family, and like just makes the best out of her situation. Next up is Vivid by Beverly Jenkins. Honestly, Beverly Jenkins cannot write a bad heroine. Like, I love all of them so much. I have read all of her books. They're all amazing. She always writes very strong, independent, and like just take charge type of heroines who aren't afraid to speak up, which I love. And her heroes always just fall at their feet. So here is the cover for Vivid. So Vivid is actually the name of the heroine in this one. Her name is actually like Vivica, but she goes by Vivid, and she is a doctor. So when the story starts, Vivid is kind of frustrated with the limits placed on female physicians of color of the time. So when she gets the chance to set up her own practice in this small Black community in Michigan, she definitely jumps at the chance. We see Vivid leaving California and heading east. So the hero's family had actually founded the town where Vivid is headed to, and so he is the one who hired her on as a new doctor for the town. And so when she shows up, he is actually kind of shocked because he was expecting her to be a man the whole time. So we find out that his aunt is actually the one who hired Vivid and then didn't give the hero any of the details. So they're kind of both pulled to each other from the start, but they definitely have some feelings to fight through as well. The hero in particular, he was in like a horrible marriage in the past, and so he has a kind of a bad taste in his mouth for city women, and he's just like assuming she's gonna leave this whole time. Loved seeing Vivid prove him wrong. She shows up in town with her medical supplies, a gun, a pool stick, and a whole lot of opinions. This one has that close proximity as well, because Vivid actually ends up moving into the home right behind the hero and his daughter, and so it becomes their romance from there. I love seeing the medical adventures in this one as well, and yeah, Vivid is just a standout Beverly Jenkins heroine. And then last but definitely not least is How to Beguile a Beast by Elizabeth Hoyt. This is the gorgeous cover and the step back for this one. Elizabeth Hoyt is one of my favorite historical romance authors. I have read all of her books as well. I love them so much. This is definitely one of the standouts though. This is actually book 3 in her Legend of the Four Soldiers series, but these can definitely be read as standalones, as they all kind of follow these heroes who are back from war with different traumas and situations going on, but they're all definitely standalones, and this is for sure the standout of the series. So this book not only is one of my favorite heroines, but it's going to roll into my favorite heroes as well. So this takes a spot on both lists, and so I'm going to just chat about both of the characters in this one together. So in here, the heroine is Helen, and the hero is Alistair. This one, I thought the premise was super unique. Helen is actually in her 30s, and she is a mother to 2 children. So growing up, Helen was always admired for her beauty, and she actually found herself becoming the mistress for a duke. So after spending half of her life as the mistress of this duke and kind of realizing that he doesn't really care for her, he doesn't even give a second glance to their children, Helen decides that she wants to leave him. So this definitely causes some problems, because Helen realizes that while the duke does not love her or care for her and their children at all, he definitely treats Helen as this like kind of beautiful possession, and he doesn't want to let her go. So this leads to Helen and her children fleeing in the night, and they head to Scotland. So this is when she arrives one rainy night in Scotland at the hero's castle, and she shows up, and Alistair actually opens the door, and she tells him like, hey, cool, I'm your new housekeeper. So this definitely doesn't go over well, because he's like, I wasn't hiring, like I'm not looking for a housekeeper, and it's just like a lot of fun banter from the start. So Alistair is definitely one of those scarred recluse heroes. He has returned from war and has facial scars. He also lost an eye, and he has like missing fingers as well. So he has just kind of come to terms with his new fate of just kind of living this very like lonely, solitude life. So Helen definitely prevails on him and is like, you need to let me and my children stay here. At first he's like, no thank you ma'am, but then after a while he definitely does give in. And I loved seeing how Alistair falls for Helen and her children, like he can't keep away from them. I love seeing the way that Alistair interacts with Helen's children, like so sweet, and a hero who always looks after a heroine's children like always gets me. So Alistair is a naturalist, and I love seeing him share his work with Helen and her children. I love seeing him share and kind of connect with her children over his discoveries. He's actually working on a book to describe the local animals and birds and flowers of Scotland and England. So an amazing book. If you love Beauty and the Beast retellings, definitely read this one. So my next hero, which of course we knew he was going to make it onto my list, is Sebastian St. Vincent from Lisa Kleypas's Devil in Winter. Here is the cover, and of course the stunning step back of Sebastian and Evie. This is, of course, the 3rd book in the Wallflowers series. If you haven't read this series yet, what are you doing? So this book is just chef's kiss, top tier wallflower rake marriage of convenience. Sebastian is just the ultimate anti-hero rake turned swoony hero. In this book, basically, Evie comes to Sebastian. He's kind of like the bad guy of the series, and she comes to him and is like, hey, I need this like marriage of convenience super quick. Like, will you come with me to Gretna Green so we can get married? So I just love this. I love their road trip in this story together, and I love seeing how Sebastian just turns so protective and caring of Evie. Like, there's some amazing caretaking scenes in here. He always makes sure she has a foot warming brick because like he doesn't want her feet to get cold. There's even times later on into the story when he helps out Evie's father who is like ailing, and he helps like shave her father, which was just like so sweet. And one thing I just grow to love more and more about Sebastian is that we see him often in multiple Lisa Kleypas books. So we of course see him later on as a parent in the Ravenel's books, in Devil in Spring and Devil's Daughter in particular. I love those books so much, and seeing Sebastian as a father and with his relationship with Evie after all these years, like this man, the swoon just goes on forever and ever for me for him. Yeah, I am firmly in the camp that Lisa Kleypas can write Sebastian in all of her books forever, and I will like keep reading them and keep eating him up. I love him so much. Next up is Sweet Lullaby by Lorraine Heath. I have talked about this book a ton recently. This is one of my favorite reads of last year. This was actually Lorraine Heath's first historical romance, being published in 1994. So this one actually came before her Texas trilogy. And like Jake, this hero in this one, he is just the most pure angel, like just, I just love him so much. He is such a cinnamon roll. Basically in this one, Jake is a ranch hand and he works at a local ranch. And so he kind of gets voluntold by his boss that he needs to marry the boss's daughter, the heroine, because she ended up pregnant and her man who like got her pregnant left her. Like if you love a swoony, sweet hero who feels like he is undeserving of love, undeserving of everything in life, like this is Jake. Jake will definitely pull at your heartstrings. We see a ton of flashbacks from this one of his childhood. Like he had the most horrendous childhood that will definitely break your heart for him. I love seeing how he wants to help the heroine in this one, Rebecca. Like he has become her friend and he's like, you know what, I'm perfectly fine being your friend and helping you out. And like maybe later on in life, like you will learn to love me. Like he is just such an angel. So of course, while he wants more from her and is hoping one day she can learn to love him, he is totally fine at just protecting her and the unborn child as well. Like I mentioned, he had a horrible childhood, and so he is one who doesn't want another child to ever go through what he went through in life. And so like the way that he protects this baby before it's even born, like, this man is amazing. Also, it makes baby furniture for the nursery, like a man building stuff for you. Like, yes, please. So yeah, all the swoon for this book, I love it so much. It definitely has that classic Lorraine Heath messiness and kind of angst and drama to it, but it definitely pulls on all of your heartstrings. Next up is When a Rogue Meets His Match by Elizabeth Hoyt, and this is the second book in her Grey Court series, but you can definitely read this as a standalone. So the hero in this one is Gideon, and he has spent his life clawing himself out of the St. Giles gutters, and for the last 10 years, he has worked as this like fixer for a duke. So basically as this fixer, he performs the most disreputable and dangerous tasks for this duke without question. So Gideon has worked for the duke for a decade, and he has finally saved up enough funds to kind of go his separate ways. And so he goes to the duke and tells him like, hey, I have saved up my own funds, like I'm ready to leave this life behind. So the duke tells him, well, I want you to complete like one last task for me, and as a reward, the duke ends up offering his niece's hand in marriage. So Gideon was kind of like halfway out the door until he heard that, because he has been pining for the heroine for years. So he's like, I cannot turn down this chance to actually win her heart. Like if you love a pining hero, read this book. I loved it so much. I loved seeing Gideon and the heroine in this one and how she has kind of lived a more privileged life. But thanks to Gideon, he kind of opens up her eyes and sees all of how other people are living around them and kind of suffering. And he shows her how she can use her privilege for good and to help others. Gideon is the type of hero who doesn't really understand emotions in himself or like anybody else really either, but like he finds himself having all of these feelings that he doesn't understand and finding himself like super caring for the heroine. And if you love a man who does like gifts and acts of services, like this is Gideon to a T. He ends up gifting her a puppy because he knows that aristocratic women love dogs. He buys her tickets to the theater even though he's never been, and when he shows up he didn't realize there was a dress code. Like he does whatever it takes to please her. He even wants to furnish a library for her in their house even though he doesn't even know how to read. Like, the things that this man does for the heroine, love him so much, so swoony. Lisa Kleypas is another one that I could talk about her characters and heroes for days, but if you haven't met Where Dreams Begin, definitely read this one. It is actually a standalone and it is so good. This was on my favorites list of last year as well. So here is the cover, and there is the step back. So of course, Lisa Kleypas is the queen of the self-made man hero, and Zachary Bronson, the hero of this one, is the ultimate. So like I mentioned, this one is a standalone, which is kind of rare for Lisa Kleypas books, so I definitely recommend it. So Zachary Bronson in this one, he is known as the Merchant Prince. He started off as a common street fighter before becoming captain of a steamship. to eventually turning to stocks and real estate, and now he is like a very wealthy investor. Zachary is a self-proclaimed social climber, and he has come as far as his money can take him in society. So he wants an in with society and the ton, and that's when he comes to the heroine Holly for help. So Holly in this one is a widowed single mom heroine. So Zachary asks Holly to be his social guide for a year and kind of help him and his sister as well, who lives with him, kind of learn the ways of society. Well, he tells the heroine he's definitely going to pay her, and he also wants her and her 4-year-old daughter to move in with him. So we get that forced proximity, which I love. And like I mentioned, I love when children are in stories, especially historicals, and seeing a hero take care of the heroine's child, like love that so much. Zachary is always spoiling her daughter with gifts. He knows that she collects buttons, and so he'll bring her like cute little buttons from his trips. It's just so sweet. The way he spoils the heroine as well. Love to see it. Love seeing the way that he takes care of her and how she plays a role in his life. Just the ultimate pining hero where he falls first. So that's it. Those were my 5 favorite historical romance heroines and 5 favorite historical romance heroes. Thank you so much again to Crystal for doing this collab. This was so much fun, and I can't wait to go watch her video after this one. Like I said, this list was so hard to narrow down. There are so many amazing historical romance heroes and heroines out there. Let me know in the comments what some of your favorites are. I would love to know. And let me know too if you've read any of the books that I talked about or if you're going to pick them up now. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I'll see you in my next one.